Hi, and welcome to Art with Mrs. Torres. Today we are going to be inspired with these little forest animals by my backyard and those beautiful trees. So, our backyard gets a lot of little animals that come and visit, and we have never had a hedgehog. However, we have had owls and we've seen some foxes. So, it'd be a lot of fun to do this project. You're going to need a pencil, an eraser, a Sharpie marker, and one piece of paper for drawing. You can use paper that comes out of your printer or a piece of construction paper, whatever you have on hand. So pause your video, gather up those items, and meet me back here for our lesson. It's going to be fun. Today we are going to be making our cute fall fox and friends picture. You're going to be needing a piece of paper. I'm just going to be using white construction paper or multimedia paper. You can also use paper that comes out of your printer. You're going to need a pencil. You're going to need an eraser, a Sharpie marker, and something for coloring with. I will be using crayons. However, you could also do this project using colored pencils or markers. Even watercolor paint would look beautiful with this picture. So pause the video, go gather those items up, and then meet me back here when you are ready. Now, let's get ready to draw our picture. First thing I'm going to do is find the center of my artwork and make a dot. I'm always doing this. This really helps me in my placement. And look, today we have 3 things that we have to fit into our picture. So we don't want to end up drawing our fox too large, then we won't have room for the 2 other characters, I mean. So the first thing I'm going to show you is that the center of my paper right here is right about the bottom of my hedgehog. So I'll be drawing a hedgehog here and an owl up above, and then the fox down below. So taking my pencil, the first shape that I want to work on is the fox first. So the fox is going to go at the bottom of my paper, and we want to make sure we have enough room for his feet. I always tend to draw it too low on the paper. So what I'm going to do right now, just to help me, I'm going to draw a line across the bottom. It doesn't have to be straight. It's just going to be the grass that my fox is standing on. That's going to remind me to make sure that my feet end before I get there. I'm going to come up here to where this dot is, and that's where I'm going to start my fox's head. So for my fox's head, I'm going to begin with a circle, saving room at the bottom for the oval for his body and his feet. Now, once I've drawn the circle, I can always make it shorter or smaller or larger as I keep drawing, as long as I'm drawing lightly. Next, I'm going to change the face. I don't want to draw a circle for the face. I'll be making a point in a minute. But first, let's begin by making an oval for the body. I'm just going to come around like this, creating an oval shape. Now, we will make our fox larger than this, but this is just kind of a basic shape to help us curve around when we're drawing his body. Next, we'll be adding his feet at the bottom. So I'm just going to draw 2 rainbow shapes side by side. These will be his front paws or his front feet. And then I'm going to round it at the bottom, kind of overlapping the grass down below. Now make sure before we move on that your feet are centered underneath that dot. So you might want to put your pencil here and make sure that your feet aren't starting to tilt one way or the other. This always happens to me when I'm drawing. Everything starts leaning one direction. So sometimes I'll take my pencil, place it in the middle, and then I'll go back in and then change kind of the placement of my feet. You can see right here, my feet were too close together and he would look like he's tipping over. So I'm just going to kind of bring that foot out a little bit more. And then I can erase the spot in there. Now, once I've done that, we can always change the feet later, but we're just kind of blocking the shape in. Next, we're going to come up here to the top of his head. We're going to leave a nice space in between because we're going to be drawing the hedgehog there in a minute, but we're going to draw 2 ears very far apart, and we're going to be making those ears into really fat triangles. Well, once I've done that, then I'm going to make his cheeks a little wider on the side, and it's going to come down to a point. I'm going to make this cheek wider, and it's going to come down to a point. We want the bottom of his nose to be more of an angled shape like this, like a V. So I'm just rounding this and then bringing it down to a point, and rounding this side and bringing it down to a point. Once I've done that, we don't need this original circle anymore, so we can erase the dot in the middle, and we can erase all those little ovals and circles inside that shape. See, now his head's starting to look more like a fox. Now the next part is to draw a nose at the bottom here. And then we're going to draw two arched curves that come up and around, and this is going to be the white part of his face right here. So I'm going to make a curved line here, up and around, and up and around. And I always like to look to make sure they're about the same size. At this point, I can always make his cheeks furrier on the side here, or I can keep it smooth. It's just whatever style you like. I'm going to make him a little fuzzy on the cheeks here, but you can also keep it nice and smooth on the side. When you're finished, you're going to erase any part that you don't need anymore, or any part that you corrected. All right, and when you finish with that, we're going to then create the bottom of his body. So this is going to be his shoulder, so it's going to curve around and come out to the edge of his foot. And then this side's going to come around. Now you're not necessarily matching this oval, it's just helping you remember the curve. I'm going to bring it around and touch here. And then I'm going to make a skinny line here, short. So this is going to be his front leg. It's not going to go up too high. I'm going to match it on this side. And then in this space right here, this is where his chest is. So I'm just going to form kind of like the bottom of a leaf shape or the bottom of a heart shape. Comes down like this, and then you can actually add just a little bit of fur on the side if you'd like to. And then you're going to use your eraser. I'm going to use my magic web, but you can use the end of your pencil also. When you're finished, then you're going to come out here and draw his back legs. So his back legs really are simple. You're basically going to draw a half of a curve that comes around and stops somewhere around the side of his front foot. And then you're just going to bring this back foot out and around to touch the ground. And you're going to match it on this side. So you can just take your pencil like this and kind of hold your finger where it's even. And then redraw that on the same side. I'm still going to correct it later if I need to. And then make your back foot on the side. And then once I'm done, I'm going to go in and erase the lines that I don't want to keep anymore. And then and here in the front legs, we don't need that oval curve. That just helps us to make our curved legs in the front. When you're all finished, then we're going to add the little eye detail. So I'm just going to make kind of a smile shape here for the eyes. However, you could also make the eyes open. And when you're making your eyes, you want to make sure that they are evenly spaced from that curved line that comes up right here, and that they're the same level. So if it helps you to draw a very light pencil line, as long as you erase it later, that's fine. And then I do have another trick once we're done. So let me finish a couple more parts of our fox, and then we're going to do a little trick to make sure everything is correct and even. So I'm going to draw some curved lines for his toes. I'm going to do the same thing on the front foot. So I'm going to kind of extend these toes out just a little bit so it's not a perfectly round ball. And then I'm going to add a curved line here and a curved line going the opposite direction here for his toe. I'm going to do the same thing here, curved line, kind of like a backward C. I'm going to leave a little space here in the front, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to take my magic rub and erase the ground out of the middle of this foot. And the final part, before I show you this little trick, is I'm going to draw the tail. So what I normally do is I'll look at my picture and decide, does my picture have more room on the left side or the right side? So if you made your picture right, smack dab in the middle, you don't have to worry about that. You can just choose the side you want to make the tail. But I usually will kind of measure with my fingers and see which side has a little bit more room. Looks like this side has got a little bit more room, and that's where I'm going to add the tail. So for the tail, it's really up to you how you want to create that tail. You could make a leaf shape like this. This is a really simple fox tail. You could do that, or you could make the ends of the tail have a little bit more fur on it. And then I do like to always add a little jagged line down from the top of the tail, because we need to divide the tail with some white fur and then some orange or rust fur when we're done. So now I'm going to show you my little trick that I do always when I'm done drawing. If I'm drawing a picture at home and I want to check my work, I turn my picture upside down. So once you rotate your picture upside down, let me darken my ear just so you can see it in the camera. But once I darken my picture, turn my picture upside down, what happens is now you are looking at your picture in a different angle. And watch this. If I put my pencil right here, right down the middle of my paper or the middle of my fox, you're going to notice a couple things right away. First off, look at the placement of my ears. So here's my pencil right in the middle, right down the middle of his snout of his nose. And you'll see that this ear is only about 1 finger space away, and this ear is much farther away. See how it's lower down on his forehead? So I take the ear and bring it down here to match this one. So I can bring it down like this. Or I could take this ear and bring it higher on the head to match. So that's the first thing I notice. So I'm going to erase this one. The other thing that I noticed when my picture is this direction is that my cheek on one side is a little shorter than my cheek on the other side. So I want to make sure that that is even also. So when I'm holding my pencil like this, you'll see that this cheek isn't quite as full as this cheek. So I'm going to add just a little bit more fur on this side to match. And flip it around. And that looks good. And then my final part is, if you want to, you can add a little extra triangle in between his ears that we can color a different color later. So the fox is done. Now we have this space up at the top here to fit in our hedgehog and our owl. So I'm going to start by drawing an oval right between the ears of my fox for the hedgehog. First, it looks like he has a watermelon on his head, but we'll turn it into a hedgehog in just a minute. And then once I've done that, I'm going to go up here and draw my owl. Now my owl is going to be made up of 2 circles. One circle, it's almost like I'm drawing a snowman. One circle for the body, and then the other circle is going to be intersecting this circle, and this is going to be the head of my owl. I can make it larger later, but right now I'm just kind of blocking in the shape. So this will be my owl, and that's going to be my hedgehog. So the first part of my hedgehog is just to round up the body. I'm going to make him furry later. And then I'm going to give him this kind of curved nose. I'm going to curve his nose going up and then loop it around and bring it back under and give him a little smile. And then right here on the end, I'm going to put a nose coming up like this. They have a little black nose that I'll color in later. And then I'm going to give them a small lower lip right here. Let me just come in right here. There's a little bit of lines, and I don't want you to get confused as you're looking on my video. There you go. That's better. So I'm going to give him a little lower lip and then bring his little chin down here. And swoop his forehead up like this. Now we're going to create his eye above his cheek. So a little bit back here, I'm going to draw a curved eye. And then very lightly, I just want you to draw a curve like this for his face. And draw this light. The reason we're going to draw it light is we're going to change it once we add the ear. Now the ear is going to go right here even with his eye, and I'm just going to draw a little curve for his ear. And the rest of him is going to become furry. So the first place I'm going to give him some fur is right here at his forehead. I'm just going to give him a little bit of fur coming out here over his forehead and down onto his head. And I'm using this line here just to place the fur. It's going to stop at his ear. And put a little bit around his face here. And then the rest of his body is going to be furry. And fur grows down. So I'm going to start from the top here and just draw a few little zigzags with my pencil. We'll go over this later with our marker. And then once I've kind of filled in that oval shape with fur, I'm going to draw his foot. So I'm going to have one foot coming here. I'm just going to draw the back of his foot like a heel. I'm going to erase a little part right here so I can draw his foot. And I'm just going to give him 3 sharp little toes in the front. And then his other foot is going to be right here. I'm going to erase that spot. And I'm going to do the back of his foot. And then his 3 little toes peeking out from underneath his body. When I'm finished with my hedgehog, I'm going to move on up here and draw my owl. So the first thing I'm noticing as I'm drawing my hedgehog is that he looks kind of small. So I think I'm going to make his body just a little bit larger in the back. As I'm drawing, I'm always correcting. As I'm looking at something, if something doesn't look right, I just correct it now so I don't forget to do it later. And as long as you're drawing lightly, you can erase those pencil lines and nothing's going to show once we get the crayons done in there. I like that better. Okay, moving on to my owl. So my owl is going to be placed up at the top of my hedgehog. And I'm going to start up here at the top of his head. And I'm going to make a slight curve like this. And I'm going to draw the little tufts of feathers at the top of his head. Before I started learning about the great horned owl that we learned about a couple lessons ago, I thought that those were his ears. And so once I got the tufts of feathers there, I'm just curving the face around, just following the circle. And then right in the middle, let me show you my drawing. Right in the middle, we're going to curve it up like this and then add that beak. So you could make a upside down triangle beak, or you could make a diamond shaped beak like this. I'll leave that up to you. So what I'm going to do is right here, I'm going to find the center. I'm just going to round the face here and here. They come into the center. I'm going to erase this part right here. And I'm going to also erase inside of his face. And we'll decide where to place his eyes, and then we'll do his beak. So the beak will end up right here. We got to get the eyes in there first. So of course, because it's an owl and it's a cute cartoon, I'm going to make enormous big round eyes. And you could have your owl looking straight ahead, looking down at the hedgehog, looking up at the sky, or you could have your owl with his or her eyes closed. So I'm going to be making mine closed. And then for the beak, you can either make an upside down triangle like this, or you could make a diamond shape, just bring it up a little bit at the top. It's totally up to you, whichever way you'd like to make it. I'm going to round those cheeks out just a little bit more. And then the body out. And now we're going to draw wings. So the wings is just a copy of what you did here. So I'm just going to wrap them around. And wrap it around on this side. And then we're going to add one extra curve for the chest in here. And then the feet are going to be poking out from underneath his belly. So I'm just going to draw 2 lines for one foot like this. And then 2 lines coming this direction for the other foot. And the end of the feet, I'm just going to draw 3 pointed toes. And for here, erase that little spot and do the same thing. 3 pointed toes. When you're all finished drawing your picture, then I'm going to have you pause the video and get out your Sharpie marker and start to trace over the lines you want to keep. Now, don't be tracing over the lines that you don't want to keep. So what I would recommend is going in with your eraser first and erasing all of those pencil lines that you don't want to stay until the very end. This will take just a few extra seconds to do, but it's really helpful when it gets time to start inking. That way you don't ink the things that you don't want. Like for instance, this little part of the ear, you want to erase that little space in there. And then I'm going to have you go in with your Sharpie marker. Make sure that you're using a thick marker like this, a fine point marker. I call this Mr. Chubby. So go ahead and pause your video, ink in your drawing, and then meet me back here and we'll talk about coloring. Okay, you have gone over all of your pencil lines with your magic rubber eraser and cleaned up all of those lines you don't need anymore. You've inked everything with your Sharpie marker. If you notice, I kind of do a double line around the edge. I really like that thick outline, but that's just my style. You draw it the way you want to. When you're all finished drawing your picture, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Now I can show you the 2 pictures side by side. So here are some ideas. When you're coloring, you can do a solid color for each animal. For the hedgehog, the way I did my hedgehog is I used some crayons, I used brown, I used a little black, and I used a little cream for his face. So these are the colors that I used for the hedgehog. For the inside of his ears, I added a little pink. For the owl, I used orange and brown and yellow. And for the chest, that was one thing that I wanted to ask if you would like to do. You could go in and make a pattern with your marker. And the way I did that was I just drew a scalloped edge like this across for that space, but you don't have to do it that way. You could actually leave it blank. It's totally up to you. And then you can color your chest of your owl a different color as well. I like to keep the eyes white. And then when I'm doing the coloring of the hedgehog, you want to make his fur look really fuzzy. So the way I did that was I just took my crayons and I left the bottom half white and then colored lots of different little strokes over and over around in lots of different angles, just so it would look a little bit more fuzzy. And then for the fox, I want to show you the colors that I used. I used orange and I used red and I used brown and even some yellow. I mixed all those colors together to kind of get this kind of, I don't know, more warmer tone brown than if you were just to go in with your crayon with a flat brown. There's a big difference if you do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to color the space right here in between his chest and his legs so you could see what it would look like if you were just to color one solid color. So this is what it would look like if you just put brown there. You see how it's kind of flat? It doesn't have a lot of pop to it. It's just really simple. But by adding some layers, so if I go in with orange, already that's looking a little better. I can blend in a little yellow to kind of make it a more golden brown. And then to make it a more of a rusty brown, you can rub a little bit of red over it. And then if you'd like to make it look like it's farther in the distance, so like this would be shaded in between his legs, you can go in and put a light coat of black over it. Now, as you can see, I'm really not coloring very hard. I'm just putting a little hint of it inside. You could also use gray, but since gray has a little white in it, it kind of makes the colors a little bit more muddy. I do use gray as a shadow underneath the nose and the cheek right here. And another place that I added gray was in the underside of the white belly of the hedgehog here. So I just took a gray crayon and just very softly brushed it across here, like this. You could also add a shadow using either gray or black underneath the feet of each animal that are resting on the head. Now up here, because the hedgehog was a little darker, I traded out and I did my shadow with a black crayon. But as you can see, I'm not coloring it very dark. I'm just very softly brushing it underneath the toes and the feet. But for here, I used gray because I thought that was a little softer because the fur is white for the chest. So now I just brushed a little bit underneath the face here so that the nose and the cheeks are casting a shadow. Speaking of cheeks, you can see that I brushed a little bit of pink into the cheeks of the fox like this. And into the ears, I also brushed a little bit into the ear of the hedgehog. Let's see, what else? Oh, the feet. So for the feet, when I was looking at images of foxes, their feet are black, but I didn't want to color it black with a marker because I wanted to be able to see kind of a little bit more shading and the definition between each toe. So by using the crayons and kind of brushing your black a little harder around the edge, you're going to kind of get that same look of shadow. I'm just brushing it a little bit heavier around the edges. And we used our marker to make that dividing line between the rust fur and the black. Well, I hope you had fun today learning how to draw our little fox and friends picture. I had a great time teaching you, and I'm loving doing these lessons with you. I'd really love to see your artwork. Would you please send me an email with your drawing to rtorres@lcusd.net. See you next time. Bye.